First and foremost, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Bahasham, Raka Kudash. Double honors to the elders and the apostles of Great Millstone, and peace and blessings to the elect. And today we're going to go into the book of Revelation, the 8th chapter. So, as John saw, right, in the 7th chapter, as he was continuing to see these visions, he basically saw the deliverance, to sum it up, the deliverance of the elect, all right, and the basically the good state that they're going to be in, right, not lacking, not wanting for anything. So, leading into Revelation chapter 8, verse 1, and when he had opened the 7th seal, there was silence in heaven about the space of half an hour. So remember that John was seeing this vision, right? Going all the way back to about the 4th chapter. He saw a door in heaven, a voice called up to him, and then he was in the spirit, and he started to see these visions, right? He saw the throne of the Most High. He saw Yahweh Shai as a lamb that was slain, the 4 beasts, right? The 24 elders, all of these things. And as he sees the lamb opening the seals, the 7 seals that were on the book, we now get to the part where the 7th seal, okay, is opened. And here he says, when that was opened, it's kind of like everything stopped, just no more. Because remember, if he was still seeing what was going on in the heavens, he would have still seen, the angels that are continually praising the Lord, the voices that were coming from the throne. So he says here, it opens, right? The 7 seals open, is like everything just goes quiet, just silence. Okay, nothing. He's not seeing anything. He's not hearing anything for about half an hour. Almost like the Lord just like like you're watching TV and somebody just turns off the TV, and then or the power just goes out and you're just nothing for about 30 minutes, and it comes back on. So in verse 2 it says, and I saw, so afterwards he saw here the 7 angels which stood before God, and to them were given 7 trumpets. So now this once the 7th seal is open, right, which commences this this pocket of time, or this time period, you now have 7 angels which are given 7 trumpets, and each of those angels, as we're about to read, as they sound their trumpets, it's almost like they're orchestrating the the destruction, okay, or the events happening on the earth. So and it tells you, I think it's either in the next chapter or a couple chapters down the line, how once the 7th angel, right, sounds that 7th trumpet, because this is the 7th seal, that's the last seal. So once the 7th angel sounds that 7th trumpet, that is going to be the completion of the Lord's mysterious plan. Okay, and at that point you hear, the scripture tells you that that's when all the kingdoms and everything has been given to the hands of Yahweh Shai, and basically all the things that had to take place before the full dominion of Yahweh Shai, going back to the first seal, okay, are now going to be accomplished. So, verse 3, and another angel came and stood at the altar. Remember, John, he's seeing what's going on in the heavens, and there's an altar there. The fact that we have an altar on earth is patterned after what was in the heavens, right, on earth as it is in heaven. And it's the same altar. Remember that he said he saw the souls that were of those that were that had lost their lives for Yahweh Shai's sake. So there's an angel that comes and stands at the altar, and this angel has a golden censer. A censer is it's which you basically burn incense in it, right? Let's look up here. Censer for incense. Yeah, it looks something like this. Okay. So something like this, and then you could carry it about with the chains that are around it, and it would just be burning, right? And it has holes and space for the smoke to come out of. And so he sees this angel, and the angel has a golden censer, and there was given unto him much incense, that he should offer it with the prayers of all saints upon the golden altar which is before the throne. So when you go back to the Torah, right, we know the Levites, right, the priests who would be within the tabernacle, and I'm talking about going back to the wilderness, they would be before the altar, right? They would perform the offerings and so on. And it would often say that it would be a sweet savor to the Lord, right? Now, he's not actually eating the food, it's being burnt and the smoke is going upwards towards heaven. So it's in similar fashion, but here what's being offered to the Lord are the prayers of the saints, okay, which are Israelites. And so our prayers come in the form of incense to the Lord. And that's why there's actually a precept, if I can find it. All right, let's see. I think it says the prayer of the wicked is like smoke. Let me see if I can find it here. Prayer of the wicked, smoke and God's nostrils. Showing Isaiah 65. I don't think it's this one here. Oh, maybe it is. Maybe it is. Isaiah 65 and what, 5? Let's take a look at that. And there's also one to the contrary, which is like the prayer of the righteous is like a sweet savor to the Lord. But anyway, it says here, yeah, I mean, this is okay. It's not the exact one that I'm looking for, but it says here, which say, stand by thyself, come not near to me, for I am holier than thou, referring to these wicked Israelites. These are a smoke in my nose, a fire that burneth all day. So that's one, but not the exact one I'm looking for. The one I'm looking for, I think, okay, there should be one in the Apocrypha that talks about the prayer of the righteous piercing the clouds. Piercing. Yeah, the prayer of the humble. Okay, suppose this is not bad. For the prayer of the humble pierceth the clouds, and till it come nigh, he will not be comforted, and will not depart, till the Most High shall behold to judge righteously and execute judgment. And then my brain is probably mixing up a couple of different precepts in here, but I feel like there's a precept that talks about that, like the prayer. Maybe it's the prayer of the wicked is an abomination to the Lord. Nonetheless, it doesn't smell good to the Lord. All right, and he doesn't like that. So here, the prayers of the saints are likened onto incense, right? That are being burned towards the Lord, and it's like a sweet savor. Now, I'm trying to see. I think maybe in the book of Luke, the 2nd chapter. I wonder if it mentioned something similar here. Let's take a look. During the course of Zechariah, the father of Luke, the 1st chapter, the father of John the Baptist. All right, so it just mentions this is when the angel came to actually speak to Zechariah. But I thought I had read something similar to basically like the timing of why the angel was there, because this was the time when they had all gone to pray. So remembering going back to Revelation, the 8th chapter, that our prayers, right, are in the form of, are brought up to the Father in the form of incense. Okay, so reading verse 3 again, and another angel came and stood at the altar, having a golden censer, and there was given unto him much incense, that he should offer it with the prayers of all saints upon the golden altar which is before the throne, that is before the throne of the Father. And the smoke of the incense, which came with the prayers of the saints, ascended up before God out of the angel's hand. So as he's offering the the prayers mixed with the incense on the altar, that is, the smoke of it is coming towards the Lord. That's basically the visual that John is seeing here. Verse 5. Salakia. And the angel took the censer and filled it with fire of the altar. So like the coals from the altar. And he puts that into the censer and cast it into the earth. Now, when you actually go into the word cast, this isn't like you just like toss it somewhere. It's let's go to the word cast. Oops. Whoa. Whoopsie. Okay, so it says here to throw, right? To let go of a thing without caring where it falls. So here John sees the angel, he offers the prayers, and he fills the censer up with with the fire from the altar, and just beams it into the earth. And there were voices and thunderings and lightnings and an earthquake. So that action commenced, right, as the mention of the earthquake, which in terms of how it translates to events that take place on the earth, the earthquake, all right, is representing the destruction, right, or the effects on the earth in the midst of this destruction. Because remember, the seventh seal is open, and as these angels are about to sound, right, because the verse 5, the angel throws in the censer into the earth, and then the angels prepare themselves to sound, and then they start actually sounding. Okay, now keep in mind that as these angels are sounding, it's not, even though there are 7 angels, one after the other, the events that are happening as they're sounding are not all strictly in chronological order. Though they're all somewhat related, because these are all, end time events, but they're not all in chronological order. The Lord does that. Some, like when you read even in the book of Revelation, the 12th chapter, it's not all in chronological order. The 20th chapter is not all in chronological order. Okay. So, mentioning the earthquake, right? Because that earthquake, which is not going to be just one, remember in Isaiah, it tells you the earth is going to shake, it's going to reel to and fro. So you're going to have earthquakes, all right, and mostly caused by the destruction, all right, that is going to be happening in the earth by the nuclear missiles in the midst of World War III, because World War III is a part of biblical prophecy. That it's in fact, it's needful to set up the setting in which that lake of fire is then created, is brought about. So the massive destruction is a result of that Third World War. Verse 6, and the 7 angels which had the 7 trumpets prepared themselves to sound. So they they got ready. He's seeing the 7 angels. They have their 7 trumpets. They're getting ready to blow the trumpet. The first angel sounded, and there followed hail and fire mingled with blood, and they were cast upon the earth. And the hail and the fire mingled with blood is symbolic for the nuclear missiles. Okay, so that's why I mentioned here, it looks like they're orchestrating the destruction. So the first angel sounds, and then boom, you have missiles flying. Now we know that it's not literally talking about hail, because hail is not mixed with fire. It just looks like that to John. Okay, but hail, when it hails, one, it's not mixed with blood and it's not mixed with fire. Number 2, hail doesn't burn up the earth. All right. So the hail, and as it says, and fire is really describing the missiles, or even warheads, okay, mingled with blood. And he's seeing it mixed with blood, but it's not because the missiles themselves are going to be flying with blood on them, but that is symbolic for the mass amount of death that is going to come by way of these missiles. They're going to do a lot. They're going to do a lot of damage. In Second Ezra, the 5th chapter, it mentions that they that dwell on the earth shall be taken in great number. And that's going to be because of the great destruction. And they were cast upon the earth, and the third part of trees was burned up, and all green grass was burned up. And so them being cast upon the earth, as John is seeing, when that actually transpires in real life, that'll be when these nations start shooting their missiles one on another. Now, in particular, mention here the third part. And when you go back, into the, I believe it might be in Genesis, but really as you read throughout the scriptures, the Lord classifies, the nations on earth into 3 main groups. Okay, the sons of the wicked are classified, a term used for the Edomites. The sons of God is in reference to the Israelites, and the sons of men is in reference to the other nations. Okay, and so when it says here that the third part is referring to 1/3 of the 3 categories, which is referring to the Edomites, the sons of the wicked. And so the third part of the trees was burnt up, and all green grass was burnt up. This is the parts of the earth that are mainly going to be getting hit and affected by these missiles, all right, or by this destruction. Because you have to think about this on a practical level, right? This isn't just abstract behavior that's going on here. When you look at the world today and how things are going, the war that is brewing, that is gonna transpire, or it's gonna escalate into nuclear missiles being fired off, it's mainly between certain targets, right? Certain key players. And that's dragging in more and more players when it goes into a world war. But mainly you have Amalek, right? Israel. You have the U.S., Edomites, Amalek, Edomites. You have European countries, right? The EU and a lot of NATO countries, which are also Edomites. You have Russia, which are also majority Edomites. Okay. And then you have, Turkey and Iran and China and North Korea and the other nations that are also going to be involved in here, right? So majority of the key players in here are Edomites. And that means that Russia is not going to be looking to say, you know what, let me go blow up some random country in Africa somewhere. Meanwhile, I'm engaged in a war where one of my primary opponents are the US. So they're going to say, you know what, let me point my missiles at the US. Let me launch missiles on their land, right? Let me launch missiles on their allies. Let me launch missiles on Israel, and vice versa. So that's why the third part, which is mainly the dwelling places, the portion pertinent to the Edomites, is going to be the main portions of target. As we continue to read in the chapter, it keeps mentioning the third part, the third part, the third part, because they're the ones that are going to be mainly targeted in this war as those missiles are flying. Okay, and the primary third part of Esau's kingdom is Babylon, America. But that's not going to be the only place that is getting hit with these nuclear missiles. All right, and missiles in general. So it says the second angel sounded, and as it were, a great mountain burning with fire was cast into the sea, and the third part of the sea became blood. Okay, so on a literal level, you are going to have the missiles as they're being shot. They're gonna hit different areas, right? They're gonna target land, and they're actually gonna target water. They're gonna target the seas. They're gonna target the harbors. They're gonna target the coastal areas. And as they hit, whatever is in that region is going to die. Okay, but also when you go to the book of Revelation, the 17th chapter, the sea is also used to represent peoples, nations, kindreds, and tongues. All right. So let's go there, Revelation 17. And right here is mentioned as waters. So in the first verse, it mentions like John seeing this woman or this great whore that is sitting upon many waters. So let's read that. Revelation 17:1. And there came one of the 7 angels which had the 7 vials, and talked with me, saying unto me, Come hither, and I will shew unto thee the judgment of the great whore that sitteth upon many waters. All right, and the whore is Babylon, okay, aka America. And the angel is going to explain when we go down to verse, let's see, verse 15. And he saith unto me, the waters which thou sawest, which waters and sea is synonymous, right? Which thou sawest where the whore sitteth, are peoples and multitudes and nations and tongues. All right. So going back to Revelation 8 and 8, the waters here can also represent the peoples, multitudes, kindreds, and tongues, right? Basically, society, cities, right? Places where people dwell. So when the second angel sounded, this mountain burning with fire, which is also another visual representation of the missiles, was cast into the sea, right? It hit these different areas. And the third part, once again, the third part being the parts where the Edomites dwell, and the primary target being Babylon, as it says, of the sea became blood. And what does blood signify? Death. And the third part of the creatures which were in the sea and had life died. And the third part of the ships were destroyed. So both in the symbolic representation of the sea, which represents like the place where people dwell, died, because if the missile hits where you at, you're cooked. But also on the literal level, the actual waters that were nearby with fish and sharks and whatever life is in there also dies. If not from the impact of the blast, definitely from the radiation, which is going to go into that as well. And the third part of the ships were destroyed because whatever ships are in that region are also going to get hit. Submarines, okay, actual, ships on water, they're all going to be destroyed. And the third angel sounded. So the first 2 angels have sounded, and you can see how the first one sounds, there's destruction hitting. Then the second one sounds, there's more destruction hitting. Then the third one sounds, right? The third one sounded, and there fell a great star from heaven, burning as it were a lamp, which is also another visual representation of the missiles. This is why the day of destruction is going to be so great in destruction. Burning as it were a lamp, like a torch, and it fell upon the third part of the rivers and upon the fountains of waters. And the name of the star is called Wormwood, which when you go into the word wormwood, it translates to, I believe, bitter. Let's confirm that. Yeah, wormwood, the name of the star which fell into the waters and made them bitter, right? Bitterness, figuratively calamity. Now, this isn't, the actual stars in heaven is not what this is referring to. This is referring to the nuclear missiles. And they are they're going to cause, as we're about to read here, the places in which they hit, particularly as I mentioned, the waters, right? The rivers and the fountains of water, to become wormwood, meaning contaminated. All right. When you go back to the time of in Exodus, when we went to, was it Meribah, the waters of Meribah, how they were bitter, meaning that we couldn't drink it. Not because it tasted like actual bitterness, but because it wasn't safe to drink. But then the Lord had Moses perform a miracle, and it says the waters were made sweet. But it doesn't mean that he poured sugar in it and it starts to taste sweet. No, but it became safe to drink again. So here it says the name of the star is called Wormwood, and the missile itself is not going to actually be called Wormwood. But when you go to the word name, it's not always in reference to when we think of name, it's kind of like one main thing you think of, which is the name, what something is called. But as you can see here, it says the name is used for everything which the name covers. Everything, the thought or feeling of which is aroused in the mind by mentioning. So guess what? When people hear about the missiles, when they see it, what's coming to their mind is bitterness, fear. Okay? So what's attributed to these missiles is going to be bitterness, calamity. And the third part of the waters became wormwood, right? The places that were hit by these missiles became wormwood, contaminated, and many men died of the waters because they were made bitter. Water that actually tastes bitter, like if you were to put, like, say, chlorophyll in water, it won't taste sweet, right? If you were to mix echinacea or oregano in plain water and drink it, it's not going to taste sweet. It's going to taste bitter. But that's not going to kill you. Bitterness is just going to be hard to drink, but it doesn't kill you. So when it says bitter, it's not referring to actual taste wise, but in terms of contamination. And that's going to be, hence the name nuclear weapons. It's going to be from the radiation emitted from the nuclear weapons. Let's look this up here. Dangers of radiation from nuclear or from nukes. Look at that. It says here, in the long term, nuclear weapons produce ionizing radiation, which kills or sickens those exposed, contaminates the environment, and has long-term health consequences, including cancer and genetic damage. The widespread use of atmospheric testing has caused grave long-term consequences. Okay? So that's the danger of radiation from nukes. So when you go back to Revelation and it talks about the waters being made bitter and men dying, it's because of the contamination, the radiation that's going to affect the water. It's not going to be safe to drink anymore. And the fourth angel sounded, and the third part of the sun was smitten, and the third part of the moon, and the third part of the stars, so as the third part of them was darkened, and the day shone not for a third part of it, and the night likewise. So in Revelation 8 and 12, you're going to have this happening both literally, but also being symbolic for the lack of answers, right, or wisdom in being able to bring solutions, right, and what to do in this situation. Okay, now literally speaking, when the fourth angel sounded, as John saw these things happening, the sun isn't actually going to be hit by missiles. Okay, but the sun, the third part or a portion of the sun being smitten, is likened on to it being that portion of the sun being blocked out. And that's going to be, on a physical level caused by all the smoke, right? The thick, dark smoke and the shade that's cast by the missiles and all the projectiles that are going to be in the air, okay, as they're about to rain down on particular places, where they're targeted or destined to hit, namely Babylon being one of them, but also places in Europe, places in the East. Okay. And so that's the physical aspect of it. Now it mentions the moon as well, because the sun gives light, but so does the moon. And on the earth, in one place, remember how the earth works. It's not always daytime. Whereas when it's daytime in one place, it's nighttime in another. Okay, so the missiles can be hitting, and for you may be in the U.S. and it may be daytime, but somebody over there in Israel or Iran, it may be nighttime for them. Okay, or in some other part of the planet. Okay, so it mentions here the moon also being darkened, similar causation, and the third part of the stars, because these are all forms of light, depending on what time of the day it is. But in the nighttime, it's already dark. But if you now have, explosions and like I mentioned, the mushroom clouds and the projectiles, the missiles flying overhead, it's creating more of a dark scene on a physical level, right? So it says here, so as the third part of them was darkened, and the day shone not for the third part of it. Yeah, because if part of the sun is being blocked out by something, then that portion of light is not going to shine down, because whatever is up in the air is casting a shadow. And the night likewise. Now, in terms of, figuratively speaking, the sun, the moon, and the stars are a representation of knowledge, wisdom, and understanding. And we'll get a precept on that real quick. But when this destruction comes, it's going to get out of hand very quickly. Okay, and so the powers that be, the elites of this world that are thinking that they're gonna trigger this war and then be able to control it and try to bring an end to it when they please, so they can change the world just enough to bring forth, this new world order in its fullness, rising up from the ashes of the destroyed world, rebirthing a new world. They're gonna realize very quickly that's not how it's gonna go, and all of their plans is gonna all go down to the drain. They're not gonna have answers. They're not gonna have solutions. So the sun, the moon, and the stars are a representation of that. Now, the the moon and the stars, for example, and even the sun, these also can be used as signs in the heavens, right? And people that know how to read them use it to actually give information, right? To divine, to have insight into certain matters, looking at the constellation of the stars. So that's that's how the sun and the moon and the stars can be representation, or be a representation of knowledge, wisdom, and understanding, or insight, right? Received from being able to read the heavens. Now, a precept that I wanted to get here is in the book of Isaiah, chapter 47, verse 11. It says here, referring to Babylon, "Therefore shall evil come upon thee." The destruction we're reading about is an example of evil that's going to come upon Babylon and Esau, Edom. "Thou shalt not know from whence it riseth, and mischief shall fall upon thee, and thou shalt not be able to put it off. And desolation shall come upon thee suddenly, which thou shalt not know." See, so in all these, the evil, the mischief, and the desolation, you won't be able to take control over the situation, to de-escalate, or to mitigate damages, or or to be able to take control over the situation. The Lord is going to completely destroy this place, and then he's going to send Yahushua back in the midst. So you ain't coming back into power. You're going to put the controller down, you're going to turn off that console, and you're going to go read some book somewhere, because you're not coming back to play this game. Verse 13, "And I beheld and heard an angel flying through the midst of heaven, saying with a loud voice, Woe, woe, woe," right? Which woe is signifying destruction or evil, "to the inhabitants of the earth, by reason of the other voices of the trumpets of the three angels which are yet to sound." So far, 4 angels sounded, and there's 7 total. That means 3 more are left. So this angel is saying, "Whoa, whoa, whoa, destruction, destruction, destruction," because of the remaining things that are going to happen when those 3 angels sound. And you'll notice as well, as the first angel sounds, and then the scriptures will say, right, going into the subsequent chapters, the first woe is past, right? Two more woes come hereafter, right? And then after a couple more chapters, it'll say the second woe is past. Behold, the third woe cometh quickly, right? Woe, woe, woe. In any case, that brings us to the end of the book of Revelation, the 8th chapter. Lord willing, that was edifying to the elect. In closing, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahushai, Bahasham, Racha Kodash. Until next time, Shalom.